Hey there, and welcome to this first of many website audit videos. The folks at Christus Classical School were so kind as to offer their website up for review so that I could share my recommendations both with them and with all of you. Let's get a few things out of the way before we jump in. One, I apologize for the kind of unusual lighting and probably the suboptimal audio. I'm actually in Nashville right now at a Herzog marketing and enrollment training retreat. So I'm in the hallway of our hotel while I record this. So it's not really perfect, but hopefully it will work. The other thing is I want to cover what we're going to talk about and what we're not going to talk about. We are only going to focus on really two areas, and that is design and content. We're not going to be talking about accessibility, search engine optimization, mobile optimization. There's a lot of other things we could talk about, but for the sake of time, we're not going to cover that in this video. We're just going to focus on design and content. Also, I'm not going to be highlighting much of the things that the school is doing well. So you guys at Christus Classical, please know that I see that you're already doing a number of things well on the site. But for the sake of time, I'm only going to focus on improvement opportunities so that we can just pack a bunch into just a few minutes. All right, with all that behind us, let's jump right into a review of some design improvement opportunities. All right, here's some design improvement opportunities. Let's start with the fonts. And there's a couple of different areas where I want to focus on font improvements. The first is that there seems to be a misalignment between the fonts on your website and the fonts in your logo. So if I just zoom in here a little bit, let's see if I can zoom in here, we see that there's really three different fonts on the website. The ones that are primarily used is this serif font and this sans serif font. I want to focus on the sans serif for just a moment because you'll see it's actually a different font than the one used in your logo. Also a sans serif, but notably quite different. You look at that R as an example. See how clean the lines are in this letter R here compared to this R right here. And I know it seems like a small thing, but overall it leads to this sense of brand disunity and disconnection. So I would just say, unless there's a really compelling reason to be using this font, I would align the two. Maybe you say like this actually better matches the style of our brand, in which case perhaps at some point your logo should find its way to being aligned with this. Nonetheless, the fonts don't match right now, and I think that undercuts some of the professionalism. The next, a little more broadly speaking, is the way that the fonts are used, in particular the headings. Sometimes we have all caps headings like here and down here. Where was it? Right here. And then we have most of them are just title caps like this and here. Sometimes, or most of the time, let's say, the headings are the sans serif font, but then sometimes it is this. Sometimes it's tiny and sometimes it's not. So there's reasons to use different ones. Like right here, we have this parent testimonial, just as another example. It's small, it's title caps, and it's bold, and it's sans serif. But then down here, for some reason, we have all caps and spread apart and serif. There seems to be very little rhyme or reason to how the headings are currently being used. And again, it's small, I understand, but it's undercutting the design professionalism of the site. So I would consider tightening that up. The next thing I'm going to note is pretty apparent in this section, maybe more than any other, which is some color inconsistencies and just what feels like sort of a random color palette. So we have this beige-ish color here, and then we have this off-white here, and then we have this mustard yellow here, and then we have this grayish bluish, I think, color here, and then we have this chalkboard black and gray here. I don't know what the brand color palette is, but I think we have too many colors going on right now, and they're not working well together on the site. I think you can massively simplify this color palette and actually make it look a lot better. We don't need to be so colorful. So I would say revisiting the color palette could level up the professionalism of the site. The next thing I'll note is container widths or content widths, and then we'll talk about heights. So most of the content, at least if we just look at the home page here, fits into a box that kind of ends here on this left side or this right side. You can see where my mouse is, hopefully. And you can trace it up. It looks a little off here, but it's lining up with this arrow. Then we get down here to this section, and this video just blows almost all the way to the edges, and so does the content underneath it. For seemingly no reason, we've gone from the content being this wide to being this wide. And again, it's just undercutting the professionalism of the site. It continues to be really wide in this section before going down to a more narrow section down here. And see, this section aligns with where you were before. So, and then down here in the footer, we have an even more narrow section. So there just seems to be no real rhyme or reason around the widths. And similarly, we have some issues with consistency in the section or the container. I'm not sure how they would define it in your site builder. But within each of these big colored areas, we have different amounts of space. So you see here at the bottom, there's this big gap, which is a different amount of space than there is right here. Less space at the top of this section. Lots of space at the bottom of this section, tiny amount of space at the top of this section, a different amount of space at the bottom of this section, and it's like that in multiple places of the site. What we really would go for, with rare exceptions, is something like what you see here. If I were building the site, it'd be a similar amount of space as you see here, above and below the content of every section, and it'd be pretty consistent. So none of these super tiny sections or amounts, and none of these super massive amounts either. So a couple more quick things. Typos and capitalization. I sort of already touched on capitalization, so let's just talk typos. I'm not going to hit all of them, but one just right here on the home page, we would need an apostrophe here. Small thing, yes, but as an educational institution, you're going to be held to a higher standard as parents look at your site. So I would go over it, and you may even need to have someone else who hasn't seen the content and can look at it with fresh eyes, go over it and just make sure that everything is grammatically correct, or is spelled correctly, or has the right punctuation, all that sort of stuff. Last note on on design is some repeated photos. In particular, this photo of the girl with the dog. Amazing photo. So fun. So I love that photo is on the site, but it loses its impact when I see it like 4 different times. So it's on the home page twice, and it's also on a few other pages. So if the problem is that we have a lack of good photos, I would encourage you to find an opportunity to get more photos so that we don't have to repeat them so often. All right, that was design. Hopefully a few things in there that you can jump on and take care of to elevate the professionalism of the design. Let's turn our attention next to content. So right at the top of the site, we have this welcome to Christus Classical School. We do not need to welcome people to your site. They know where they are because it's on the logo, and you can even repeat the name in this main section, but it doesn't need to be taking up all the space, and it doesn't need to be preceded with a welcome to statement. I would take this section and make it, this big text, make it a statement of success, make it a vision for students, make it language that captures the heart and mind and attention of the people that are going to be reading it. And just your name in massive letters doesn't do that. So, excuse me, I would look at ways to use this space more intentionally to communicate a really valuable message. The next, and a really big item I want you to consider, is that I have to scroll way too far down your homepage to learn anything about your school, to learn anything at all. We have a name, yes, and we have when you opened and the city and state. But in terms of like what your school even is, I have to scroll down to about midway through the page. We have photos here. We have a parent testimonial. That's fine. I'm sure has information about your school hidden somewhere in there. We have this video, which no doubt has information about your school in it. But if I'm looking for text, I have to go all the way down here to find anything about your school. And then it's only 3 sentences. And then that's it. On the entirety of your homepage, there are 3 short sentences in the middle of the page that talk about what your school is all about. I don't really count this because this is really more about just classical education. So I don't really think that's going to do it. But there's just not much content about your school on the homepage. If you were to say, what if someone only visited our homepage? Or what if they only gave us 5 to 10 seconds of their attention? What would they know about us? And right now the answer is nothing, actually. So that is a huge opportunity I don't want to undersell. The opportunity to say more about yourself. That doesn't mean big blocks of content, huge paragraphs of content. It just means we need to say more and say it sooner. The next item is I'm going to say the About page. Let's go over here. The About page doesn't really say much about you. It talks about your statement of faith, your creeds, your affiliations. We have a little, some photos of your staff, and then we have information about your founders. This really isn't telling us much about you. We don't even have a mission and vision statement on your About page. We don't have information about why the school needs to exist. Perhaps it's hidden down here, but that's too far down the page and kind of tucked away under what's really more effectively a bio. So I would revisit this About page to once again tell more about the school besides just your theological beliefs and creeds and whatever affiliations you have. So revisit that. The next thing I'm going to say is that the site has very little, I'm going to say it actually has nothing to say about your academic program, save for what curriculum you use. So yes, if I want to know that you offer grammar and if you have English and you have math and you have science, and I mean offering Latin, that's a neat classical school distinctive. But in terms of actually telling me something about your academic program, there's literally nothing on the whole website that I could find that tells me about what you guys do and how it impacts students, is how it transforms them, their preparedness for life, their love for learning, any of those things. There's nothing on the site about your academic program unless we count this list of curriculum, which parents are not going to get excited about. So in short, and we could go page by page, but in short, the site is communicating information, and it's bare bones information at that, but it is communicating information, but it's doing very little at all to tell me why I should consider your school over any other option out there. It's just very thin. And I'm going to, of course, give you the benefit of the doubt here and say that you just opened last fall. You're still a startup school. So I'm sure you're still figuring out a lot of this out yourself in terms of what messages you should be communicating, and perhaps even what your school is going to be. So there's time to learn, but I would find what you are today and where you're going and fill in some more content about that. Another quick note about this is that most of what is on the site right now is for internal audiences, not for prospective families. On the academics, for instance, we have the calendar, which is internal. Tandem calendar, internal. Current families, obviously internal. The reading list on the curriculum page, internal. Let's see here. We have support. We have apply now. That's internal. And then apply now is just further down the funnel. They're further down the decision-making journey. So there's very little on your site right now that speaks to the main audience that your website should be for, and that is prospective families. That's a big opportunity. I'll also note, as we close this out, from a call to action, from a conversion standpoint, what are we getting them to do? Your call to actions are lacking and confusing. So there's no clear call to action up here. We scroll down here to middle of the page, and we have a learn more, which is a transitional call to action. We still haven't had a direct call to action. Admissions, transitional, not a direct call to action. Way down at the bottom, we finally have our first direct call to action, and it's contact us. I have opinions about this as well. Also, I'm just noting this, but there isn't a phone number field on here. I have no idea why we wouldn't be at least giving them the option to give us a phone number. It's far less likely that you need their address at this stage than that you need their phone number. Probably just an oversight, but I would 100% swap those two. Drop the address field. You don't need that information from a contact form. and replace it with a phone number field. Um, but just generally speaking, we don't have calls to action on pretty much any page except the homepage, and on the homepage is just a contact us button at the bottom of the site. I would say, since you are now open and operating, if you can do on-site visits to make a call to action of schedule a visit near the top. Up here, I would consider making, instead of this being apply now, I would consider also making it visit us or schedule a visit, and make that call to action abundantly clear so that they know what they should do next. So I hope this video has been helpful to you. Thanks for those who watched it and perhaps found value in it. Thanks for bearing with my odd location and audio and my hoarse voice, as I've been coaching with schools all day and have lost my voice through the process. But I hope this is helpful to you, and I hope that you find it instructive as you look at your own websites and look for ways to improve. We look forward to your feedback if there's a way that we can make this better and more valuable for you. But until the next one, have a great day and keep up the kingdom work. Hey, I actually wanted to jump back in with one more thing that's really important, and I failed to mention it earlier, and that is contrast. This is an Achilles heel on a number of different pages and areas, and you can see an example of it right here. The contrast between this mustard yellow background and the light gray, sort of medium gray text is not sufficient. It's poor from an accessibility standpoint, but that's beside the point for right now. It's really just hard to read and doesn't look good together. So I would find areas like this. You can see it also down here. We can see a low contrast in the menu, this very light gray over this white. And there are other examples throughout the site, but I would find those areas, and honestly, I would just make all this text black if you were keeping the yellowish background. I would make it black. This gray is just not dark enough. Similarly, I would make this text, before you hover over it, I'd make it black as well. And look for those different areas where there's just very little contrast and go ahead and bump that up. It's going to be better for your users, for your visitors, and also better from an accessibility standpoint.